MSI's first Ryzen 4000 based gaming laptop, the Bravo 15, is, for lack of a better word, disappointing. It could have been amazing, but it's just not. The display is poor at best, it runs hot, and I could have sworn that the trackpad was broken if not for other reviewers mentioning the exact same issue. So where did they go wrong? Well, let me talk you through it, but first, if you haven't already, consider subscribing for more videos like this one every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. Let's start with the spec. Now this one is running a Ryzen 4800H with 16GB of RAM and Radeon RX 5500M graphics, which sells for around about £1,000, $1,000. In terms of performance, as you would expect, it's reasonable, but not fantastic, especially with those mid to low end graphics. Let's take a look at the numbers. Now, starting off with the game testing and Battlefield 5, this was tested at 1080p ultra settings with DirectX 12 enabled and no DXR, and we're seeing 66 FPS average with a 1% low of just 24 FPS. It was pretty stuttery to play this, and so if you were going to play this on laptop, I'd definitely turn down those settings. When it comes to COD Modern Warfare, this was again at higher ultra settings, and this was a lot better, 78 FPS with a 1% low of, round it up, 42, although there was a few visual artifacts that may have been driver related when I was testing. When it comes to PUBG, this was, again, ultra settings with 65 FPS average and minimum of 51, so a pretty reasonable experience. You're not making use of that 120Hz display, but you can always turn those settings down. And when you're looking at Fortnite, this was, again, epic settings, multi-core rendering enabled, and this was at 63 FPS average, but a bit more stuttery, jumping down to 32 FPS as its minimum. And taking a look at the CPU intensive workloads like Blender BMW, you can see that the 4800H that's in this is actually impressively close to its bigger brother, the 4900HS that was in the Zephyrus G14, and even beats out desktop Intel CPUs as well. The same goes for Cinebench multi-threaded, where again you can see that it's just slightly slower than the 4900HS, but still remarkably faster than even the desktop 9700KF, and of course being beaten by the desktop counterpart 3700X2. Then in the single thread results, we're looking at a very similar results to, again, the 4900HS. The 9700K and the desktop 3700X do beat the 4800H here, but not by all that much. So a competent CPU for video editing and 3D modeling with maybe a bit of gaming on the side, right? Yeah, the temps would disagree with you. Now the CPU, when doing anything even remotely intensive, from Cinebench to rendering in Blender, that would sit at 95 degrees Celsius and stay there the whole time. In fact, while gaming, I actually saw it peak at 102 degrees Celsius with a considerable amount of throttling to go with it. That was recorded with hardware info, by the way. And well, the GPU wasn't as bad. I think that sat around 84 degrees Celsius, which is about right for this kind of laptop. If we take a look at the bottom of the laptop, you might see why. Do you see any way for air to get into the fans that are inside this machine? Yet no? Me neither. There is no direct airflow into the fans. In fact, they are just blocked by a solid sheet of plastic. Now, if you take the bottom cover off, you'll also notice something else, which is that the CPU, the heatsink that connects to the CPU, that's only connected directly or solely via one heat pipe. It's a tiny heatsink by comparison to the two that the GPU has. And the GPU has a direct heat pipe to that heatsink as well, so it's sharing all three, while the CPU gets, what, half of a tiny one? Now, I informed MSI of my results a number of weeks ago now, and I held off posting this video because it was my understanding that they were going to be testing their own sample to try and confirm my results, or to work out if there's something wrong with this unit, maybe the fan curve isn't right, or, you know, thermal paste isn't applied, that kind of thing. But it's been a number of weeks and I still haven't heard back from them. They still haven't tested anything as far as I'm aware, and so at this point I just have to post this video, especially since this is a product that you can go and buy today. And yeah, but maybe the temperatures don't matter to you so much and you care more about just having a functional laptop that you can do maybe some, you know, video editing, photo editing, 3D modeling, some gaming on, right? Well, that would be great if the display they stuck on it let you see anything with any level of accuracy. Now, it's labelled as a FreeSync Premium display. It's an IPS level 120Hz 1080p panel, and none of that means pretty much anything. When you take a look with my Datacast Spider 5, it reported just 65% or so of coverage of the sRGB spectrum and under 50% of the Adobe RGB and DCI-P3 spectrums. Even when calibrated, you can't trust this display to be able to show you anything even close to true to life if you're doing video editing, photo editing, or anything even remotely color sensitive. So it's just for gaming then, right? Well, again, still no. The panel is incredibly slow. While it still does have a true 120Hz refresh rate, the panel's response time is pretty bad. The black to white response time I measured is around 9 milliseconds, and worse, the white to black response time, so going from a light to a dark image, that was 27 milliseconds. That's incredibly slow and means that ghosting is pretty prevalent, especially when going from those lighter to darker scenes. Oh, and as for total system input lag, that's from a mouse click to a gun firing in-game, this was near 60 milliseconds. That's a good 10 to 20 milliseconds slower than pretty much any other laptop I've tested, which is a pretty big deal when gaming. And the bad news doesn't end there. The trackpad is a serious letdown, and I honestly don't know how this happened, since this, for all intents and purposes, is just an MSI GF65 with a different motherboard inside, so I'm very confused. I honestly thought that the trackpad was broken, if not for Eber from Hardware Canucks mentioning this in his review as well. Essentially what happens here is that the actual actuation point for the click is about 5mm further down than the resting height of the trackpad. That means when you just go to tap the trackpad, the whole thing jogs and dips, which doesn't feel right. It feels like it's unreinforced and broken and makes for a very well, unpleasant typing and usage experience. Now the keyboard is better. It's a sort of new chiclet style design, which while has a little less key travel than I'd like, I got used to it very quickly and is actually pretty nice for gaming too. The I/O also isn't too bad either. You have 2 USB Type A ports as well as now 2 USB Type C ports. I honestly would have rather seen more Type A ports here, and also they're all on the right hand side. Bit weird, but anyway, you also have a headphone jack as well as Ethernet, HDMI and DC in. Now battery life is a bit hit or miss. If you're just sitting on the desktop or doing some light web browsing, word processing, then you can get a decent number of hours. I think mine's currently quoted about 5 hours of usage. MSI claim over 7, but I haven't seen that personally. But thanks to MSI fitting an absolutely minuscule 51 watt-hour battery to this, it means that if you were to ever fire up a game or do anything even remotely intensive, the battery life drops to under an hour. So if it isn't obvious, I can't recommend anyone go and buy one of these. The CPU itself is great, but it seems like pretty much everything else that's around it is mediocre at best. MSI had a great opportunity to make a brilliant budget gaming laptop here with a fantastic CPU, and even if they stuck with the same graphics, still reasonable enough performance that you couldn't complain too hard. If they just stuck a decent display on it, a reasonable battery, and a bit better cooling performance, and also fix the damn trackpad. Sadly, the tough A15 from ASUS doesn't seem to be any better, and so I think we're mostly just going to have to wait for manufacturers to stop treating Ryzen CPUs like the budget, cheap option that they can throw the worst displays into and call it a day. Now with that said, those are my thoughts and results and experiences, and I would love to hear yours in the comments down below. What do you think of the Bravo 15? What do you think of the faults that I found, or anything else? Do let me know in those comments down below. Now if you would like to check out the Bravo 15 or just see pricing when and where you watch this, I'm going to leave a link to it in the description down below. That's an Amazon affiliate link that will take you to your local Amazon store where you can see all that good stuff, and there is a load of other links that you can check out in the description too if you want to support the channel. There's merch, hoodies or t-shirts like this one, or a load of other cool designs. There's Patreon for ad-free videos and supporting me directly, or there's a load of other affiliate links like Overclockers UK if you're buying from them. There's also a couple of VPN options, Humble Bundle, and just a load of other stuff too. You can also check out some more videos over there. I'll leave the G14 review, as that's a much more impressive Ryzen-based laptop that you can check out, and otherwise that is pretty much it. If you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments down below, but otherwise we'll see you all in the next video.